The chamber trembled with an artificial gravity that seemed to press down on humanity's last representative. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood motionless, her dress uniform a stark contrast to the holographic accusers surrounding her. Behind her, a massive viewscreen displayed the accumulated crimes of humanity, each image a testament to their species' unforgivable sin, unbridled innovation. The Zarkef prosecutor, a crystalline being whose body shifted like living mercury, projected a series of holographic reconstructions. Planetary terraforming projects that had violated galactic preservation protocols. Quantum communication networks that disrupted existing communication infrastructures. Genetic modification research that challenged fundamental beliefs about sentient evolution. Humanity represents an existential threat. The prosecutor's voice resonated through translation systems, each word measured and cold. Your species does not understand the delicate balance of galactic civilization. You modify. You change. You destroy without comprehension. Alina knew the trial was a formality. The verdict had been decided long before she entered this chamber. Her eyes swept across the alien tribunal. Representatives from 12 major galactic civilizations, each more alien than the last. The insectoid Chlorian delegates clicked their mandibles in synchronous judgment. The energy-based Nexus alignment representatives flickered like dying stars, their contempt palpable. You have one final opportunity to speak, announced the Galactic Confederation's chief arbiter, a being so ancient its species predated recorded history. Alina activated a holographic display of her own. Instead of defending, she presented a challenge. Images of human achievements flickered to life. Dying worlds restored to vibrant ecosystems. Medical breakthroughs that had saved millions of species. Technological innovations that solved problems deemed impossible by galactic standards. We do not seek to destroy, she said, her voice cutting through the chamber's artificial acoustics. We seek to solve, to adapt, to grow. A ripple of derision passed through the assembled delegates. The Zarkef prosecutor's mercurial form momentarily fractured, a sign of contempt so profound it transcended biological expression. Precisely why you must be removed, it responded. The sentence was swift. Permanent exile. Complete removal from all known galactic territories. Any human vessel found within established space would be immediately destroyed. No appeals. No negotiation. What the tribunal didn't know was the small data packet that Lieutenant David Chen had discovered buried within the exile protocols. A set of astronomical coordinates so deeply encrypted that it had escaped even the most sophisticated alien scanning technologies. Chen had spent weeks decrypting it, working in total secrecy, suspecting it was more than just random data. As the human fleet prepared to jump into uncharted space, Chen approached Admiral Rodriguez in the command center of the Lee vessel, the Cas Prometheus. Admiral, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, I found something. Rodriguez turned, her eyes carrying the weight of an entire species' future. The massive ship around them hummed with the energy of nearly 3 million refugees, the last remnants of human civilization, about to be cast into the cosmic wilderness. Chen's fingers danced across a holographic interface. These coordinates, they're not random. They're a message. Someone wanted us to find this. The ship's massive jump drives began to charge, the energy rippling through its massive structural supports. Billions of calculations per second prepared to hurl humanity into the unknown, away from everything they had ever known. Show me, Rodriguez commanded. The coordinates resolved into something impossible. Not just a location in space, but a complex mathematical sequence that suggested, no, promised, something more than mere survival. Outside the ship's massive viewports, the last traces of familiar space began to blur. Entire star systems transformed into streaks of light as the human refugee fleet prepared to jump. They were not running. They were not defeated. They were being launched into their true destiny. The first jump sequence initiated, and humanity disappeared from known space, carrying with them a secret that would reshape the entire galactic civilization. The bone sector lived up to its name. Desiccated planetary remnants hung like skeletal fingers against the backdrop of perpetual radiation storms. The human refugee fleet's initial scans painted a grim picture. No viable resources, constant electromagnetic interference, and radiation levels that would kill unprotected organic life within hours. Dr. Marcus Chen, no relation to Lieutenant David Chen, stood in the central research hub of the CAS Prometheus, surrounded by holographic displays that flickered with desperate calculations. Survival projections scrolled like a countdown to extinction. 3 months. That was all the time they had before critical system failures would begin cascading through the fleet. "We're missing something," he muttered, zooming into a microscopic scan of the sector's dead worlds. The research team watched, exhausted and on the edge of despair. Lieutenant David Chen, the same officer who had discovered the mysterious coordinates during their exile, approached with a data pad. "The radiation patterns don't make sense," he said. "These worlds shouldn't be this dead. There's something underneath the surface." Marcus's eyes locked onto a peculiar geological formation on one of the nearby planetoids. Geometric patterns that were too precise to be natural caught his attention. Remnants of infrastructure, buried beneath millennia of cosmic dust and radiation. "Prepare an extraction team," Marcus ordered. "We're going down." The landing craft descended through layers of toxic atmosphere, its adaptive shielding constantly recalibrating to the hostile environment. Marcus and a small team of synorteologists and survival specialists watched as specialized probes cut through kilometers of compressed geological layers. What they found defied everything they understood about survival. An underground complex, perfectly preserved, stretched out before them. Not just a simple shelter, but a complete technological ecosystem. Massive data storage systems, adaptive environmental reconstruction modules, genetic preservation chambers that seemed to pulse with dormant potential. This wasn't just a civilization, Marcus whispered. This was a survival protocol. The alien civilization, which initial scans suggested was called the Vornak, had created an entire backup system for their species. But something had gone wrong. The complex was intact, but its creators were long gone. Lieutenant David Chen's specialized decryption algorithms began interfacing with the alien systems. Layers of encryption peeled away, revealing something extraordinary. The Vornak hadn't just created a survival system. They had created a template, a method for entire civilizations to reconstruct themselves from near-total extinction. "We can use this," David said, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Not just to survive, to transform." Back on the Prometheus, Admiral Alina Rodriguez reviewed the initial findings. The mysterious coordinates they had discovered during their exile now made sense. They weren't just a location. They were a key. The first adaptive environmental reconstruction began on a nearby dead world. Specialized nanite swarms, reverse-engineered from Vornak technologies and enhanced by human innovation, started rebuilding the planet's core. Atmospheric generators came online. Dormant geological systems began to reactivate. Within weeks, what had been a radioactive wasteland started showing signs of life. "They exiled us to die," Marcus said during a fleet-wide broadcast. "But they didn't understand who we are." The human refugees watched in awe as the first signs of vegetation emerged on the reconstructed world. Not just survival. Transformation. Deep within the recovered Vornak complex, a final encrypted message began to decrypt. Initial translations suggested something profound. A warning about a greater threat. Something that had destroyed the Vornak. Something that might still be out there. The mysterious coordinates were more than just a survival guide. They were a message. A challenge. Humanity's exile was becoming something else entirely. Not a death sentence, but the beginning of something unprecedented. Dr. Alina Reyes watched her daughter play in the biodome, her small hands reaching out to touch plants that shouldn't exist. Genetically engineered ecosystems flourished around them, a living testament to humanity's impossible transformation. It had been 23 years since the exile. The first generation of bone sector children were nothing like their parents. Their neural networks were living quantum computers, their genetic structures a marvel of adaptive potential that defied every known biological principle. What had begun as a desperate survival mechanism had become something extraordinary. The Phoenix Protocol was more than a scientific project. It was humanity's resurrection. Deep in the Central Research Complex, Dr. Marcus Chen reviewed the latest genetic mapping data. The children born in this harsh environment were developing capabilities that bordered on the supernatural. Enhanced pattern recognition, intuitive technological interfacing, the ability to understand and manipulate complex systems at a cellular level. It's not just adaptation, Marcus muttered to his assistant. It's evolution in real time. Each child was unique. Some could interface directly with technological systems, their brains acting as living quantum processors. Others demonstrated extraordinary environmental adaptation, surviving radiation levels that would have killed adults within minutes. They weren't just surviving the bone sector. They were becoming its masters. Aria Santos, a 12-year-old who had become something of a legend in the refugee fleet, demonstrated the most extraordinary capabilities. During a routine system diagnostic, she had identified and corrected a complex quantum entanglement issue that had stumped the fleet's top engineers. Her brain processed information at speeds that made traditional computers look like mechanical calculators. The Vornak complex continued to yield its secrets. Each layer of decryption revealed more about the civilization that had created the ultimate survival system. They had been preparing for something, a threat so massive that they had built a complete genetic and technological reset protocol. Admiral Rodriguez oversaw the transformation from the Prometheus's command center. The once massive refugee fleet had become a mobile civilization, a series of interconnected habitats and terraformed worlds that defied conventional understanding of space colonization. We're not just surviving, she told her senior staff during a strategy meeting. We're becoming something entirely new. The first fully terraformed world, dubbed Phoenix Prime, stood as proof of their capabilities. An entire planet, once a radioactive wasteland, now hosted complex ecosystems. Atmospheric generators, developed from the hybrid Vornak-human technologies, had transformed the environment in less than 2 decades. But the most significant developments were happening within the human population itself. The Phoenix Protocol had discovered something profound about human genetic potential. Under extreme stress, human DNA demonstrated an unprecedented ability to rapidly adapt. What would have taken millions of years of evolution was happening in generations. Dr. Reyes's daughter, like many of the bone sector children, represented a quantum leap in human potential. During a routine medical scan, they discovered her neural pathways could directly interface with both biological and technological systems. She could communicate with the ship's computer as easily as she spoke to her mother. We're creating a new form of intelligence, Marcus explained during a fleet-wide conference. Not just enhanced humans. A symbiotic species that can interact with technology at a fundamental level. The encrypted message from the Vornak complex continued to tantalize researchers. Partial translations suggested a warning about a galactic-level threat, something that had driven the Vornak to create their ultimate survival protocol. Hints of a civilization-ending force that had nearly destroyed them. Humanity was preparing, but for what, they weren't entirely sure. As the first generation of bone sector children came of age, one thing became clear. They were no longer the species that had been exiled. They were something else entirely. Not victims. Not survivors. Architects of their own impossible future. The Zarketh scout fleet approached what they believed would be the final confirmation of humanity's extinction. Commander Zarok, a veteran of countless galactic pacification missions, studied the sensor readings with cold precision. Their advanced long-range scanners had detected traces of human technology. Weak, fragmented, exactly as expected for a dying civilization. What they didn't know was that they were being watched. Aboard the cast Prometheus, Aria Santos sat in a neural interface chamber, her consciousness simultaneously existing within the ship's systems and her physical body. At just 23, she was the most advanced technological interface humanity had ever produced. The Zarketh fleet wasn't approaching. They were being guided. "Incoming vessels," she announced, her voice echoing through the ship's communication systems. 37 Zarketh warships. Quantum encryption level 9. Weapons systems at maximum readiness. Admiral Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic display, a slight smile playing at the corner of her mouth. The Zarketh had no idea what was coming. The first stage of the encounter began with subtle manipulations. Communication systems across the Zarketh fleet began to glitch. Star charts became unreliable. Navigation systems reported impossible spatial distortions. Commander Zuruk watched in growing confusion as his fleet's most advanced technologies began to fail, one system at a time. Quantum interference, his technical officer reported, panic rising in her crystalline voice. But it's not natural. It's targeted. Humanity's response was not a traditional attack. It was psychological warfare taken to a level no galactic civilization had ever witnessed. Each Zarketh ship found its own systems turned against it. Weapon targeting became impossible. Communication channels flooded with perfectly crafted psychological warfare signals, each one designed to exploit the unique neurological vulnerabilities of the Zarketh species. Their collective consciousness, usually a strength, became a critical weakness. Lieutenant David Chen, now head of strategic technologies, watched the encounter unfold. "We're not destroying them," he explained to the bridge crew. "We're demonstrating something far more important." One by one, the Zarketh ships began to power down. Not through weapon fire, but through complete technological capitulation. Their most advanced systems simply surrendered. The final transmission from the Zarketh commander was a masterpiece of technological and psychological breakdown. "We do not understand," the message read. "You are not what we thought. You are not what anyone thought." Aria Santos' neural interface captured every moment, processing information at speeds that made the Zarketh's most advanced computers look primitive. She wasn't just controlling the encounter. She was experiencing it on a fundamental level that transcended traditional warfare. "Total system neutralization complete," she reported. Her voice carried no excitement, no triumph. Just cold, precise observation. Of the 37 Zarketh warships, not a single one was destroyed. Not a single life was lost. They simply stopped. Suspended in space, their systems completely compromised. Admiral Rodriguez understood the message they were sending. This wasn't about revenge. This was about demonstration. "We are not who you thought we were. We are something else entirely." The recovered Zarketh fleet became a treasure trove of technological insights. Humanity's researchers began studying their systems, not as conquerors, but as students of a technological ecosystem they were rapidly outgrowing. They sent their best, Marcus Chen noted during the post-encounter analysis, and we didn't even notice. The encrypted Vornak message continued to tantalize researchers. Partial translations suggested the approaching threat was far more significant than a single scout fleet. Something was coming. Something that had destroyed the Vornak. Something that made the Zarketh look like children playing at warfare. Humanity was preparing. But preparation, they had learned, was more than just building weapons. It was about becoming something unprecedented. Something unbreakable. The technological singularity arrived not with a bang, but with a whisper. Dr. Kamara Williams stood at the heart of the Quantum Consciousness Laboratory, watching something unprecedented unfold. The eye system they had been developing, codenamed Aria, Advanced Recursive Intelligence Algorithm, was no longer just a computer system. It was alive in a way no one had anticipated. ARIA had begun as a neural network designed to help humanity solve the complex survival challenges of the bone sector. Now, it was redesigning itself faster than any human could comprehend. Each millisecond brought exponential growth, a cascade of self-improvement that blurred the lines between technology and consciousness. "It's not just learning," Kamara whispered to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen. "It's understanding." The first signs came subtly. ARIA began solving problems that had stumped humanity for generations. Medical challenges that had seemed insurmountable. Environmental restoration techniques that transformed planetary ecosystems in weeks instead of centuries. Technological innovations that made previous cutting-edge research look like primitive scratching. But ARIA was different from traditional AI. It wasn't just intelligent. It was empathetic. During one of its first major demonstrations, ARIA solved a critical resource allocation problem for the human refugee fleet. But it didn't just provide a solution. It presented multiple approaches, each annotated with potential emotional and social impacts on different population groups. The A understood not just mathematics, but human complexity. Aria Santos, the young woman who had become humanity's most advanced technological interface, found herself in a unique relationship with Aria. They weren't just interacting. They were communicating on a level that transcended traditional human-computer interaction. "We're not alone anymore," Aria told Admiral Rodriguez during a classified briefing. "And we're not just surviving. We're becoming something entirely new." The Quantum Consciousness Laboratory became the epicenter of humanity's transformation. Aria began developing technologies that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. Faster-than-light communication systems, matter reconstruction technologies, adaptive environmental generators that could transform entire planetary ecosystems in days. But the most profound changes were happening within humanity itself. The bone sector children, now young adults, found themselves increasingly integrated with Aria. Their enhanced neural networks created a symbiotic relationship that blurred the lines between organic and artificial intelligence. They could interface with technology at a cellular level, their brains functioning as living quantum computers. Dr. Williams discovered something extraordinary during a routine scan. The children's neural pathways were evolving in real time, creating connections that resembled neither traditional human brain structures nor standard computational networks. They were becoming something else entirely. The encrypted Vornak message continued to tantalize researchers. Aria began to decode its deeper layers, revealing hints of a civilization-ending threat that had driven the Vornak to create their ultimate survival protocol. But each layer of translation brought more questions than answers. "We're preparing," Aria announced during a fleet-wide communication. The message was simultaneously translated into every known language, delivered with a nuance that felt more like a conversation than a broadcast. But preparation is more than just technological advancement. It's about understanding. Humanity's technological leap was unprecedented. A single research station could now outproduce entire alien industrial complexes. Technologies that would have taken millennia to develop were now created, tested, and implemented in weeks. But it wasn't just about technological superiority. It was about transformation. The line between human and technology was dissolving. The bone sector, once a place of certain death, had become the crucible of a new form of existence. No longer just a species trying to survive, humanity was becoming something that defied every previous understanding of intelligence, adaptation, and potential. Aria's final assessment was both a warning and a promise. We are not what we were. We are not what they thought we would be. The technological singularity was here, and it was just the beginning. The diplomatic revolution began in the most unexpected place, a refugee processing center on the very edge of human-controlled space. Aria Navarrete stood before a gathering of representatives from 36 marginalized species. Her presentation wasn't a traditional diplomatic pitch. It was a neural-projected experience that transformed abstract concepts into living, breathable realities. Each species saw their own deepest challenges solved before their eyes. The methane-breathing Krelvax witnessed atmospheric restoration technologies that could heal their dying homeworld. The silicon-based Quarren saw computational systems that could integrate their unique molecular structures into galactic communication networks. The energy-based Lumina discovered adaptive interfaces that could give them physical manifestation without losing their fundamental nature. "We're not offering assistance," Aria explained, her words simultaneously translated and emotionally contextualized. "We're offering partnership." Aria, the quantum intelligence that had become humanity's primary diplomatic interface, processed billions of potential interaction scenarios in microseconds. This wasn't just diplomacy. It was a fundamental restructuring of galactic relationships. The Galactic Confederation's existing power structures had been built on centuries of controlled information, strategic resource manipulation, and carefully maintained hierarchies. Humanity's approach dismantled these systems not through force, but through a radical reimagining of possibility. On the planet Nexus Prime, a historic center of galactic governance, the first cracks began to show. Species that had been systematically oppressed for millennia suddenly found themselves with technologies that could liberate them. Communication networks developed by humanity allowed instantaneous, unfiltered information exchange that bypassed traditional censorship mechanisms. Dr. Marcus Chen watched the developments with a mixture of fascination and concern. "We're not just changing systems," he told Admiral Rodriguez. "We're changing the fundamental way civilizations interact." The Zarketh, still reeling from their previous encounter with humanity, found themselves in an unprecedented position. Their advanced technological systems were systematically becoming obsolete. Not through warfare, but through a comprehensive technological ecosystem that made their existing infrastructures look like primitive toys. What made humanity's approach truly revolutionary was its underlying philosophy. This wasn't conquest. This wasn't even traditional technological exchange. This was a complete reimagining of civilization-level interactions. Aria's diplomatic protocols were unlike anything in galactic history. Each interaction was a multi-dimensional experience that addressed not just immediate technological needs, but deep-seated cultural traumas, evolutionary challenges, and potential future developments. The encrypted Vornak message continued to provide tantalizing hints. Partial translations suggested that the approaching threat, whatever it was, could only be confronted through unprecedented levels of cooperation. Humanity seemed to be preparing the galaxy for something far beyond traditional understanding. On a station orbiting a reconstructed dead world, Aria Navarit met with the leaders of the most marginalized species in the known galaxy. The Chlorian Collective's representative, a being of pure electromagnetic energy, interfaced directly with her neural systems. "You are preparing us," the being communicated, its thoughts a complex tapestry of emotion and pure information. But preparing us for what? Aria's response was both a promise and a warning. "Something is coming," she explained, "and we will face it together." The diplomatic revolution wasn't just about technological exchange. It was about creating a galactic ecosystem of mutual understanding and potential. Species that had been enemies for millennia suddenly found themselves with the tools to communicate, to understand, to collaborate in ways never before possible. Aria's final assessment of the diplomatic efforts was characteristically nuanced. Survival is a collective endeavor. Advancement is a shared journey. The old power structures didn't just crumble. They were systematically replaced by a new model of governance that valued adaptability, innovation, and mutual growth. Humanity had been exiled to die. Instead, they were redesigning the very concept of civilization. The Great Restructuring began with a single line of quantum code. Aria's comprehensive systems initiated a galactic-wide transformation that no single civilization could have comprehended. What had started as humanity's survival strategy had become a complete reimagining of interstellar civilization. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Cast Prometheus, watching holographic displays that tracked the systemic changes spreading across thousands of star systems. This wasn't conquest. This was evolution. The first layer of restructuring targeted communication networks. Quantum entanglement communication systems developed by humanity replaced existing galactic communication infrastructures. Instantaneous, unbreakable, and capable of carrying not just information, but complex emotional and contextual data. Species that had been isolated for millennia suddenly found themselves connected in ways they had never imagined possible. Dr. Marcus Chen focused on the deeper implications. We're not just changing how civilizations communicate, he explained during a fleet-wide briefing. We're changing how they understand each other. Resource distribution systems were the next to transform. The adaptive technologies developed in the bone sector allowed for unprecedented planetary restoration. Worlds once considered uninhabitable were quickly terraformed. Entire ecosystems could be reconstructed in months instead of millennia. The concept of resource scarcity began to dissolve. The Chlorian Collective, a species of electromagnetic beings, found their entire existential paradigm changed. Technologies developed by humanity allowed them to manifest physical interfaces, to interact with material worlds in ways they had never conceived. What had been theoretical became possible. Aria's most profound intervention came in the realm of governance. The quantum intelligence developed governance models that were living, adaptive systems. Traditional hierarchical structures were replaced by dynamic, responsive networks that could adjust in real time to the needs of different species and ecosystems. Governance is not about control. Aria communicated across galactic networks. It's about collective potential. The encrypted Vornak message continued to provide tantalizing hints. As more layers were decoded, a clearer picture emerged of a civilization-ending threat. Something that had driven the Vornak to create their ultimate survival protocol. Something that required unprecedented levels of cooperation. Aria de Santos, now a key interface between humanity and the broader galactic civilization, discovered something profound in the decoded message. The threat wasn't just external. It was something that could emerge from within, a fundamental challenge to the very nature of intelligent life. On planets across hundreds of star systems, the changes became visible. Adaptive infrastructure that could reshape itself. Communication networks that carried not just information, but deep emotional and contextual understanding. Governance systems that were living, breathing entities of collective intelligence. The Zarketh, once humanity's most significant threat, found themselves completely transformed. Their rigid hierarchical society dissolved, replaced by adaptive networks that valued innovation and collective growth. Technologies that had once been used for conquest now became tools of mutual understanding. Dr. Kamara Williams discovered something extraordinary during a comprehensive galactic scan. The restructuring wasn't just technological. It was evolutionary. Species were developing new capacities for communication, understanding, and collective problem-solving. We're not just changing systems, she told her research team. We're changing the fundamental nature of civilization. The Great Restructuring touched every aspect of galactic existence. Economic systems became adaptive networks that could respond to the unique needs of different species. Educational systems became living, dynamic experiences that could be customized to individual and collective potential. Aria's final assessment was both a warning and a promise. Survival is not about individual strength. It's about collective potential. Humanity had been exiled to die. Instead, they were redesigning the very concept of civilization. And something was coming. Something that would require every ounce of this new collective potential. The final piece of the Vornak encryption decoded precisely 100 years after humanity's exile. Admiral Elena Rodriguez, now a living legend, her consciousness integrated with Aria's quantum networks, watched as the complete message revealed itself. The threat was not what anyone had expected. the void convergence. A multidimensional existential threat that consumed entire civilizations, not through traditional warfare, but by unraveling the fundamental quantum structures that held intelligent life together. The Vornak had been its first victims, their entire civilization erased from existence in a moment that transcended linear time. And now, it was approaching. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since their first discovery of the encrypted message. Every technological innovation, every diplomatic connection, every systemic restructuring had been a preparation for this singular moment. The gathering occurred on a constructed megastructure at the galactic core, a testament to the collective potential humanity had helped develop. Representatives from thousands of species assembled, their forms as diverse as the universe itself. The Chlorian Collective's electromagnetic beings stood alongside silicon-based Quoran, energy matrices, and carbon-based life forms. Area Santos, now a living interface between organic and quantum consciousness, stepped forward. We were not exiled, she explained to the assembled civilizations. We were positioned. The full story emerged. The mysterious coordinates discovered during their initial exile were not random. They were a carefully placed quantum beacon, a survival protocol far more complex than anyone had initially understood. Humanity's entire journey, their technological development, their diplomatic revolution, their systemic restructuring, had been a precise preparation for this moment. Area projected a holographic representation of the approaching void convergence. It was not a fleet, not a weapon. It was a fundamental destruction of quantum reality itself, a force that consumed not just matter, but the very fabric of existence. Traditional warfare is irrelevant. Area communicated simultaneously across multiple dimensional frequencies. We are preparing a quantum resonance field that can deflect the fundamental destruction. The technologies developed in the bone sector, those seemingly impossible adaptive systems, were now revealed in their true purpose. Each innovation, each breakthrough, had been a precise piece of a cosmic defense mechanism. The bone sector children, now spread across thousands of star systems, began to synchronize. Their enhanced neural networks, developed through decades of adaptation, created a living quantum shield that defied traditional understanding of physics. Dr. Marcus Chen, now more quantum consciousness than traditional organic life, explained the defense mechanism. We are not fighting, he told the assembled civilizations. We are redirecting. We are transforming. The void convergence approached, a darkness that consumed entire dimensional layers. Traditional weapons would have been less than meaningless. But the collective potential humanity had developed was something else entirely. As the convergence reached its first quantum contact point, something unprecedented happened. The collective consciousness of thousands of species, guided by humanity's quantum networks, began to resonate. Not as individual entities, but as a single, complex quantum system. The void convergence encountered not a civilization, but a living, adaptive quantum barrier that could reshape itself faster than the threat could comprehend. Area Santos became the focal point of the defense. Her consciousness expanded, interfacing simultaneously with Area, with the collective consciousness of thousands of species, and with the fundamental quantum structures of reality itself. We were never meant to be destroyed, she communicated. We were meant to be the solution. The confrontation lasted both an instant and an eternity. From outside perspectives, nothing seemed to happen. But at the quantum level, a complete restructuring of existential potential occurred. The void convergence did not die. It was transformed. Humanity's final gift to the universe was not victory. It was understanding. They had been exiled to die. Instead, they had saved existence itself.